When we think of a scientist, we usually imagine someone in a white lab coat, surrounded by test tubes, microscopes, or supercomputers. We think of the West mapping the physical universe, from the vastness of galaxies to the tininess of atoms. But thousands of years ago, a massive army of researchers in India realized something profound. What use is understanding the entire outer world if you don't understand the inner world running the show? They approached the human mind, consciousness, and physical anatomy with the exact same rigor, logic, and systematic testing we see in modern physics or clinical psychology. They were India's spiritual scientists, the Rishis and saints. And their legacy is unparalleled by any other civilization on earth. If you are a student or a young professional watching this video, you probably know all about the history of Western science. You know calculus from Newton, surgery from European pioneers, and psychology from Freud. But what if I told you that you've been handed an incomplete history book? Long before the modern world built its first university, India had mapped the cosmos, discovered the atom, mastered plastic surgery, and created clinical systems to hack human brain chemistry to eliminate anxiety. You are the inheritors of the world's most advanced internal software. It's time to open the manual. When we speak of a country's advancement in science, we count the top scientists. A country known for physics is known by its physicists. A country known for medicine is known by its doctors and researchers. Swami Vivekananda extended this logic into a deeper dimension. He said, if spirituality is a science, then India must be judged by its spiritual scientists. And by that measure, no country in history comes close to India. Today, we are taking a journey through time to look at their immense contributions. We will meet the Rishis, the R&D department who discovered the cosmic laws, and the saints, the field engineers who turned those dense laws into open source, practical technologies for everyday life. The land of 8,000 seers. Most ancient civilizations produced a handful of monumental thinkers, a Socrates in Greece, a Confucius in China. But India was an anomaly. It produced thousands of them in an unbroken, continuous lineage spanning over 5 millennia. Why? Because in the ancient Indian ethos, truth was decentralized. It wasn't locked inside a single book or dictated by a single prophet. The word Rishi comes from the root Rish, meaning to see. They were called mantradrashta, seers who perceived the eternal vibrations of the universe. In the Vedic tradition, a Rishi bridges the gap between the transcendental and the material. Just as Isaac Newton didn't invent gravity but merely saw it and described it, the Rishis didn't invent spiritual truths. They observed them through deep meditation and codified them for humanity. They believed that the universe is composed of sound vibrations, Nada Brahman. By stilling their minds, they heard the cosmic truths, known as Shruti, that which is heard. Many Rishis were the original scientists of India, systematizing fields such as Ayurveda, astronomy, and linguistics. At the foundation stand the Saptarishis, the 7 great seers, Kashyapa, Atri, Vashistha, Vishwamitra, Gautama, Jamdagni, and Bharadwaja, who preserved dharma and passed spiritual and scientific knowledge through the Guru-Shishya tradition. The Big Dipper is associated with them in Indian tradition, symbolizing their role as humanity's guiding lights. The 4 Kumaras, Sanka, Sanandana, Sanatan, and Sanat Kumara, represent the path of pure knowledge. Sanat Kumara is especially remembered as the great teacher who guided Narada toward Bhuma Vidya, the wisdom of the infinite. Rishi Narada Muni is remembered as the cosmic messenger, teacher, musician, and guide. Through devotion, music, and wisdom, he inspired great seekers like Valmiki and Vyas and is traditionally associated with texts such as the Narada Bhakti Sutra. The impossible hard drive. But how did this massive library of cosmic insights survive across millennia? This is perhaps the greatest technological achievement of the ancient world. The Vedas, thousands of pages of complex, philosophical verses, were preserved flawlessly for thousands of years without a single scrap of paper, ink, or digital recording. The Rishis designed an acoustic data preservation system that beautifully mirrors modern computer error-checking algorithms. The Rishis preserved the Vedas through a powerful oral system called Patha. In methods like Pada Patha, Kram Patha, and Ghana Patha, every word and syllable was recited in carefully structured patterns. If even one sound changed, the pattern would break, helping preserve the text with extraordinary accuracy across generations. When modern scholars finally collected written Vedic manuscripts from opposite corners of India, they discovered to their astonishment that the texts matched syllable for syllable, pitch for pitch. It remains an unbroken oral recording lasting thousands of years. The physical and metaphysical pioneers. When we look at the classical era of India, these insights manifested in startlingly precise physical and analytical sciences. The legacy of the Rishis is foundational to human civilization. Sushruta, 600 BCE, Kashi the father of surgery. He viewed the body as a sacred temple, yet his methods were fiercely empirical. He designed over 120 surgical instruments, mapped complex anatomy, and performed successful plastic surgery nearly 2,500 years before the West. Charaka, the master of Ayurveda, who approached medicine through metabolic systems, mapping how digestion, environment, and the mind interact to create holistic health. Sage Patanjali, in his Yoga Sutras, he maps the human psyche with the precision of a modern cognitive scientist, providing an 8-step operational manual, Ashtanga Yoga, to silence mental noise. Today, modern neuroimaging shows these meditation states actually alter brain neuroplasticity and shrink the brain's stress center. Bharadwaja authored the Vimana Shastra and Advanced Medicine, pioneering early concepts of aeronautics and the systematic study of medicinal herbs. Agastya, the father of Tamil grammar, Agthyam, and architecture, credited with bringing Vedic culture to the south and Siddha medicine. Kapila formulated Sankhya philosophy, providing the ultimate analytical framework for understanding the soul, Purusha, and nature, Prakriti. His analysis of perception and evolution parallels modern psychology and cosmology. Aryabhata, the mathematician astronomer who calculated the value of 2 4 decimal places and mathematically proved that the Earth is a sphere rotating on its own axis floating in space. Varahamihira, a master astronomer and hydrologist who formulated mathematical equations to predict eclipses and systematically mapped underground water tables using plant ecosystems as biological indicators. Mastered astronomy, astrology, meteorology, and architecture. Bodhaina formulated the geometric rules for building complex fire altars, discovering the principles of the Pythagorean theorem centuries before Pythagoras. His work shows how spiritual practice inspired scientific reasoning. Brahmagupta, the mathematical genius who formalized the arithmetic rules for using zero and negative numbers, providing the structural code for modern computational algebra. Calculated planetary positions and eclipses. Nagarjuna, the premier alchemist and metallurgist who mastered chemical purification processes, the transmutation of base metals, and the medical usage of purified minerals. Philosophically, he founded the Madhyamka school of Buddhism, teaching the middle path, balance between extremes. Madhava of Sangamagram, the pioneering mathematician of the Kerala school who developed infinite series approximations for trigonometric functions, laying the foundational steps of calculus centuries before Newton and Leibniz. Demonstrated that mathematical precision is a form of meditation, revealing cosmic harmony through numbers. These rishis remind us that science and spirituality were never separate in India. As the centuries rolled on, this scientific approach to reality evolved into massive metaphysical models. By the 8th century, Adi Shankaracharya travelled the length of India, presenting Advait Vedant, absolute non-dualism. Using razor-sharp logic, Shankara argued that the individual consciousness and the universal energy are fundamentally one. He used the famous analogy of the wave and the ocean. The wave thinks it's an individual, but its true substance is nothing but water. But India's genius was that it never remained static. If Shankara provided the model of absolute oneness, Ramanujacharya in the 11th century balanced it by arguing Vishishtadvaita, qualified non-dualism, stating that while we are part of the whole, our individual identity matters, like cells in a single living body. He broke harsh social barriers, famously shouting a sacred mantra from a temple tower to grant spiritual liberation to everyone. Later, Mandvacharya completed the dialectic with Dvaita, absolute dualism, proving that the material world is real, tangible, and an arena for dedicated service. The monuments of math and matter. These philosophical breakthroughs didn't just stay on palm leaves, they were carved into immovable granite and mapped to the stars. Look at the architectural marvels of South India. Temples like the Brihadiswara temple in Tanjavur, built over 1000 years ago under the Chola dynasty, are triumphs of advanced structural engineering. Its main tower rises over 200 feet high, capped by an 80-ton single granite block. How did they do it without modern cranes or cement? The master architects operated under the Shilpa Shastras, the ancient texts of engineering and design. They used a radical puzzle plug interlocking technology. The stones were cut with such mathematical precision that they lock into each other using gravity alone. This creates a flexible, earthquake-resistant structure. When seismic waves hit, the stones slightly shift and settle back into place instead of cracking. While Indian thinkers studied structure and design on Earth, they also tracked the heavens through the Panchang, the traditional 5-part calendar without telescopes, using purely geometric calculations and meditative observation. The ancient rishis calculated the precise orbital velocity of planets, the precession of the equinoxes, and the exact timing of solar and lunar eclipses down to the fraction of a second. The architects of civilization. As civilization expanded, this raw cosmic data needed to be converted into living psychology for the common man. Enter the epic seers. Sage Valmiki, the Adi Kavi, the first poet, gifted the world the Ramayana, creating an immortal blueprint for human character. Soon after came sage Ved Vyas, perhaps the most prolific editor in human history. Vyas systematically gathered the chaotic, scattered oral wisdom of the era and classified it into the 4 distinct Vedas, while also composing the colossal Mahabharata. But these grand epics weren't meant to remain frozen in Sanskrit. Centuries later, great literary saints stepped forward to translate these massive psychological templates into regional languages. In the north, Sant Tulsidas rewrote the Ramayana into the vernacular Avdi language as the Ramcharitmanas, bringing timeless values directly into the courtyards of ordinary families. In the south, the master poet Kambar created the Kamba Ramayanam in Tamil, re-engineering the epic with exquisite Sangam literary aesthetics. Through them, the highest cosmic truths were converted into gripping human drama. The revolution of emotion. This democratization of knowledge reached its peak with the Bhakti movement. These saints shifted the focus from complex ritual to a direct, personal relationship, turning deep cosmic laws into accessible everyday technologies. In the deep south, the Alvars, 12 Vaishnav poet-saints, proved that intense, artistic love could bypass intellectual barriers to experience cosmic consciousness. Alongside them were the 63 Nayanmars, Shaivite saints who utilized community singing and ecstatic devotion to dissolve the individual ego, converting structural temples into active powerhouses of communal healing. The South also birthed masters of acoustic and musical science. Arungirinatha, a master of acoustic engineering who composed the Tiruppugaza. He used intricate, complex rhythmic meters, chandas, to align brainwave patterns and create deep meditative focus through vocalized sound. Tiruvalluvar, a weaver by profession, he authored the Tirukkural, 1,330 concise couplets serving as a masterclass in daily secular ethics. Avvayar, the legendary woman poet saint who used sharp wit to humble proud kings, leaving us with her timeless reminder, what we know is a mere handful of sand, what we do not know is the size of the entire world. Basavan, Karnataka, a social scientist and philosopher who created the Anubhav Mantpa, the first parliament of experience, and used short vachanas to democratize spiritual access, declaring that practical work is worship, Kaikve Kailas. Purandaradasa, Karnataka, the system architect of Carnatic music who structured the foundational grading exercises and swara frameworks to turn musical training into a systematic, scalable yoga of sound. Tallapka Annamacharya, Andhra Pradesh, a prolific musical engineer who composed over 32,000 sankirtanas, using structured song formats to preach universal human equality and fight social untouchability. Saint Tyagraj, a master of emotional sublimation who used precise melodic structures, ragas, to demonstrate how classical music can serve as a highly calculated tool for stabilizing the human mind. As the movement traveled west and north, it continued to break barriers. The Varkari saints of Maharashtra, Sant Tukaram and Sant Gyaneshwar, pious intellectuals who translated the dense metaphysics of the Gita into the local language through abhangs. They turned everyday work into a laboratory of mindfulness, demonstrating how a householder can test spiritual truths while farming or washing dishes, and initiating a barefoot pilgrimage that completely erased caste lines. Narsingh Mehta, Gujarat, defined the clinical psychology of an evolved human being in his composition Vaishnav Janto, proving that genuine spiritual science manifests purely as empathy for someone else's pain. Sant Ravidas, a shoemaker saint who utilized his simple trade to prove that internal purity and ethical manual labor far outweigh outward ritual hygiene, conceptualizing a perfectly egalitarian society called Begampura, the land without sorrow. Mirabai and Surdas, master experimentalists of Saguna Bhakti who utilized the concrete imagery of Lord Krishna to focus a wandering mind, turning individual longing into a tool for supreme inner stillness. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bengal, a brilliant logician who abandoned academic debates to pioneer the Sankirtan movement. He proved that mass group singing and ecstatic dancing alter collective brain chemistry, bypassing the analytical mind to unlock deep, joyous states of awareness. As India entered the modern era, these two streams, the intellectual science of the Rishis and the ecstatic devotion of the Bhakti saints, fused together in one incredible master-disciple relationship, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Swami Vivekananda. Ramakrishna was the ultimate spiritual empiricist. He didn't read libraries of books, he tested spiritual paths by practicing them thoroughly. When a brilliant, Western-educated, skeptical young college student named Narendranath Datta challenged him with the ultimate question, "Have you seen God?" Ramakrishna didn't give an abstract lecture. He looked at him and said, "Yes, I see him more clearly than I see you. And you can see him too." Narendra became Swami Vivekananda. He took his master's raw experimental findings and decoded them for a modern, scientific world at the 1893 Parliament of Religions in Chicago. Vivekananda didn't ask humanity to blindly believe, he demanded that we treat spirituality as a science. He famously stated that the exact same methods of investigation which we apply to the exterior sciences should be applied to the science of religion. Vivekananda shifted the narrative from passive sympathy to active service, seva. He taught that serving the weak, the poor, and the suffering is the highest form of worship. Why they matter today? So, why does this ancient history matter to a modern generation surviving in a world of smartphones, artificial intelligence, and constant digital noise? Because modern humanity has mastered the outer world but is losing control of the inner world. We have built faster cars, higher buildings, and global networks, yet anxiety, loneliness, and existential stress are at an all-time high. We have learned how to split the atom, but we haven't learned how to quiet the mind. India's spiritual scientists matter because they provide the missing half of the equation. They show us that spirituality is not about running away from reality, nor is it about blind superstition. It is an active, practical toolkit for human excellence. The ancient Rishis don't ask you to bow to them. They invite you to enter the laboratory of your own consciousness, to run the experiments yourself, and to discover the boundless power, peace, and perfection that already exists within you. Fulfilling the Rishi Rina, the homage. In the Vedic tradition, it is said that every human is born with a sacred cosmic obligation, Rishi Rina, the debt we owe to the sages who sacrificed comfort to preserve this treasury of wisdom for us. They didn't patent their discoveries or lock them away. They left them as a free inheritance for humanity. How do we fulfill this Rishi Rina today? It doesn't require retreating to a cave. We pay homage through 3 simple actions. Study, Swadhyaya, by actively reading their works, whether the Tirukkural, the Yoga Sutras, or the speeches of Vivekananda. We cannot protect a heritage we do not understand. Practice, Abhyas. The Rishis were empiricists. They didn't want blind worship, they wanted us to run the experiments. When you meditate to calm your mind or live ethically in your work, you bring their laboratory back to life. Service, seva. Just as the Bhakti saints brought deep truths to the masses, true homage means turning inner clarity into outer compassion, uplifting society and passing this light to the next generation. By doing this, we cease to be passive consumers of history, and we become the active keepers of an immortal flame. Naturally, we have only scraped the surface. We have highlighted a curated selection of prominent seers, but India's history holds thousands more rishis and saints whose profound breakthroughs are waiting to be explored. Pranams to the great rishis and saints.